Hey, I'm James Rose from Content Snare, and you're about to watch an interview with Troy Dean from WP Elevation. He's one of the founders there, and they have helped thousands, literally thousands of people land more jobs at higher prices in the web design WordPress space. They're the real deal. I personally know more than I have fingers and toes. The people that have been through WP Elevation and absolutely rave about it. Plenty of Content Snare customers have been through as well. Um, we talk a whole bunch about, well, a whole bunch of things really, but the main focus today is on marketing and how you can position your business to get more leads for web design and WordPress. So if you want to check out more about WP Elevation, see Troy's stuff, I'll drop the link here, but it's going to be at contentsnare.link/WPE for WordPress Elevation. Or yeah. And if you want to find out more about Content Snare, which is our tool to get content from your clients on time, that's at contentsnare.com. So let's get into it. Sweet. Well, thanks for joining me, Troy. Good to have you.
Absolute pleasure, James. Thanks for having me, man.
No worries at all. And for those of you who don't know, Troy runs WP Elevation. If you don't know, you've probably been living under a rock. WP Elevation have helped, is it hundreds or thousands or tens? How many people?
It is in the thousands now. It is somewhere between 3,000 and 3,500 students that have been through our program over the last 5 years.
There you go. 3,500 people run a more successful WordPress business. Yeah. And more importantly, to stress less. I've seen that, getting your processes all in order and that sort of thing. I personally know a lot of people that have been through WP Elevation, and I don't think everyone has had positive things to say. So that is awesome. What else have you done? You've been down the road of agency life doing premium websites?
Yep. Started out in 2007 building websites for clients and built an agency. And that was fun. That was fun. Yeah.
You're a keynote speaker.
I have been known to speak at conferences. That is true.
Nice. But most importantly, holy shit, you sang the Cadbury jingle.
That is true. That's a true story, my friend.
I don't know if that's an Aussie only thing. Is that, do Americans get that same jingle?
I think it was an Australian thing. I think it was an Australasian thing, actually. So the jingle that I sang was a chocolate family went on holidays, and they were, and all the world was made of chocolate, and they were taking bites of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and that was a television commercial that was played here in Australia and New Zealand and Hong Kong, and it also went to cinema. So it was quite a big campaign, and it was, of course, it was based on the old Beach Boys. Wouldn't it be good? Song. So it was a great melody, and it was a lot of fun. It was a really good session, actually.
And pretty much every Aussie knows that jingle. That's why it was a big deal for me. I was like, what? No way when I saw that.
Yeah, I know. The funny story is that when I met my wife, we kind of, got chatting over the first few days that we knew each other, and kind of turned out that we were both doing voiceovers, and then when and she said, come on, what would I know that you've done? I'm like, oh, come on, I'm like, at that point in my voiceover career, I'd done so much that I was like, well, pick an ad on TV, and I've probably been in, done something related to it. So I was just like rattling off all these brands, and then I said, and also sang the Cadbury jingle, and she was like, for her, that was the moment. She was like, oh my God, I'm gonna marry you. I can't believe you sang the Cadbury jingle. I'm like, yes, it got me the girl.
I believe that. Like, it is a pretty big deal here.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into it. So basically, you said you're an open book, and I can hit you with anything.
Totally.
Absolutely. So I've tried to do as much as I could to get questions from everyone in our community, and just to see what people's biggest problems are. I mean, our data is a little bit skewed because normally we ask that question right after they've signed up for our tool, which helps people get content from clients. So they always say the biggest problem is getting content from clients, but I know that's not true. The biggest thing's always getting clients. Yeah. And so marketing and like a steady stream of leads and clients, I guess, because I've always been a big fan of referrals and partnerships. I find those are, obviously referrals are amazing. Partnerships just constantly deliver. But there's always, like that's hard to get a constant stream of clients through, you know, like you get the classic sort of feast and famine cycle with that at times. So yeah, I mean, that would be the biggest thing I'd like to talk about today is generating some kind of consistent stream of leads or a consistent just way to get clients.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and it's, you know, it's a big question, man, and there's lots to unpack. So let me answer it by bursting everyone's bubble and, you know, disappointing everyone from the get-go. The truth is, the big secret is there is no secret to getting clients. There is definitely a process that you can go through to position yourself in a favorable way so that you can pick up leads and turn those leads into clients. And so we have quite a rigorous process that we put our elevators through that kind of gets them to the point where the end result of this process is you want to be known as the person who does a specific thing for a specific type of client. So I'm going to use Bill Erickson as an example. I'm just off the top of my head. He when he first started out was a Genesis child theme developer basically, and he became known really quickly as the guy that turned your Photoshop files into Genesis child themes in a week for $2,500. That was his value proposition. It was like, so his client were design agencies, and his value proposition was, you've got this great website that you've designed, you know you want to build it on WordPress, and now you're stuck because you're either going to have to figure out how to do it yourself or you're going to have to hire a developer. So what I do is I turn your Photoshop files into Genesis child themes, which are industry best practice and a really good way to launch a WordPress website, and I do it in a week, and it costs you $2,500. Right? Now, if obviously this was kind of before WooCommerce and before kind of membership websites became really popular. So if it's a super complex site, it might be a little more than that, but that's my standard kind of offering. And what's really key about this is if you think about what Bill was actually doing, it was no different to what the work we were doing in our agency and the work that a lot of people are doing listening to this. Now, the technology may have changed. A lot of people listening to this might be using, you know, Beaver Builder or Elementor or Divi or one of the page builders. But the end result is that you are basically, you know, taking a design and turning it into a WordPress theme. Now, as I said, the technology might have changed because some of us now are just designing directly in the browser using those page builders, and we're kind of not doing the Photoshop thing anymore. But Bill just said, well, I'm not a developer. I am someone who delivers this deliverable, this kind of end result, right? And he had a very clear process. You had to submit your Photoshop files the week before. You had to have them in before the Wednesday. That gave him 24 hours to kind of have a look at it and ask some questions. It was all signed off on by the Friday. And then Monday, he sprinted. Monday through Friday, he worked on your project, and that was it. He didn't work on multiple projects at once. He delivered your project, $2,500, bang, done. Now, obviously, he got very busy. His price went up over time. His business model might be a little more complex now. But what I love about this story is that he instantly became, and you talk about referrals and partnerships, right? He instantly became super easy to refer to, right?
Yeah.
I would have conversations with people saying, oh, you know, I've designed this website in Photoshop and now we're not really sure what to do. Hey, man, just send it to Bill. He turns Photoshop files into WordPress themes and uses Genesis, which is best practice, and does it in a week, and it costs you $2,500. So it became really easy to refer to. He became really easy to partner with because it was very clear what he did and what his strength was and the deliverable that you were getting. So the end result of the process that we put our members through is that you want to end up being known as the person who does a very specific thing for a very specific type of client. And it doesn't have to be design agencies. It can be, you know, serving non-profits. It can be specializing in e-commerce conversions. It can be, you know, specializing in lead gen microsites for, you know, enterprise clients. Whatever your sweet spot is, whatever it is that you're best at and super passionate about and can do profitably, that's what you need to kind of turn into a unique process or a, you know, your own kind of proprietary technology, to steal a couple of phrases from Dan Sullivan and John Jansch. You need to be able to put something in front of people and go, all of a sudden, I'm not a WordPress developer. I'm not talking about websites. I'm not talking about WordPress. I'm delivering a product, a deliverable, and we've got a unique way of doing things. And then it becomes really easy to market that, really easy to get referrals, and really easy to partner with people.
Yeah, and it makes, I think specialization is huge because then you get to know that industry, you know their sort of the words they use, like terminology that you can spit back at them, and they think you get them, well, because you do get them.
Because you do. That's exactly right.
Yeah, like I was just chatting to a guy. Sorry?
Go on.
Oh, I was just chatting to a guy the other day who did the classic industry of dentists. Like everyone uses that as an example, but that's exactly what they did, SEO for dentists. And, in that area, it's kind of easy to not compete with each other because dentists have a geographic area. And all they were doing is reselling another SEO package to the point where they became the number one client for that SEO reseller and bought the SEO reseller. And but they still have their original dentist and SEO business. It's crazy.
Yeah. And the thing is, where a lot of people come unstuck with this is, by the way, I'm in a hotel room in Manila in the Philippines right now. So if anyone's watching, I'm not in my bedroom. This is actually a hotel room here behind me. I just wanted to clarify that. Where people come unstuck with this is a couple of things. First of all, so the big thing that prevents people from specializing is FOMO, right? People think, well, if I pick a niche, like if I go after, or niche, as the rest of the world says, if I pick the dental, niche, then I'm going to miss out on all that other work from people who aren't dentists. Well, of course you're not. But you're not going to say no to someone who comes in with a great project and is going to be profitable and fun to work with just because they're an accountant, not a dentist. It's your business. You can choose who you do business with, right? The point of focusing on a niche is that it gives you somewhere to focus your marketing efforts. It gives you somewhere to target your energy. So FOMO is something that you have to manage. But also the reason that I think people come unstuck here is because they don't want to commit to, they don't want to commit to kind of going after a particular niche in case it doesn't work out. And so I think that what I always teach our elevators is, give yourself some security and like a safety net. Like give yourself 90 days, and in 90 days time, have a time in the calendar where you block out an hour and you sit down and you have a serious analysis of what you've been doing over the last 90 days. And it's basically go or no go. At that point, you're going to make a decision. I'm going to go hard on this and I'm going to focus, or no, I'm done. I'm not having a lot of fun. It's not profitable. I'm not very good at this. We're out. That's the process I went through to decide that I wasn't going to do e-commerce sites anymore, because as much as I love them, I'm really crap at them. And I wasn't doing anyone any favors by doing them. So I'm out. I got out of dealing with professional service providers because they just didn't excite me. As much as I love my accountant and my lawyer, I didn't want to build websites for them because they just didn't excite me. I like being around creative industries, landscape gardeners, architects, non-profits we did a lot of work with, because I get some intrinsic value out of working with those types of clients. And that they're just decisions that you make as a result of having very honest conversations with yourself about what it is you want to do and the kind of business that you want to build. And if you can get clear about that stuff, then all of a sudden it's really easy to differentiate yourself from everyone else, because you've got a focus and you've got somewhere that you're focusing your energy, your energy and your efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that FOMO thing too, I know for a fact that that's not a worry. Like if you say that I do websites for dentists, that example again, and someone knows that and they're out talking to someone else who needs a website, they're not going to automatically discount you because you do dentist websites. And
that's right,
because it's way more ridiculous than that. Like when we only were a software company, we didn't even build software for people. We had our own software and that was it. People still thought we built websites because they put tech, software, websites, everything together, and we got referrals for websites and we didn't even make websites.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's ever a danger of sort of pigeonholing yourself, because people will still come. They'll come with mobile apps. They'll come with web apps, like all kinds of things in that space. Can you buy me a computer?
Yeah. Can you fix my email signature? Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the other thing, in terms of getting new clients, if you look at the different channels that you've got, so, if and really what it comes down to is developing that unique process, that unique way of doing things, right? So at WP Elevation, we have the WP Elevation Blueprint, which is a series of processes and standard working procedures and operating procedures and templates and tools that we've developed that allow you to run a WordPress consulting business, with more efficiency, less stress, and adding more value to your clients, which is ultimately how you get paid more, by adding more value. There's the big takeaway there. If you want to get paid more, add more value. And so we now just coined that phrase, the WP Elevation Blueprint, so no one can compete with us. No one else can come along and say, well, we've got the blueprint for running a WordPress consulting business. No, you haven't. We've had it for 5 years. It's something that we just made up, right? I've been saying for years, there's nothing new since the Roman Empire. It's just the technology that we're using and the way that we're doing things. But this stuff's, I mean, the freemium, give a little bit and then charge them for more. All this kind of stuff's been around since the Roman Empire. So I'm not saying that, that I'm a genius and that I've invented this way of doing business. I've just synthesized a whole bunch of stuff that works and doesn't work into a step-by-step process that people can follow. So now it becomes really easy for us to do things like content marketing, which, shock horror, actually works, because we just look at our blueprint and go, well, look, here's an idea. Why don't we take this like one little idea out of module 3, which is proposals, and talk about why you should add frequently asked questions into your proposals and the actual purpose that serves and how it can help you increase conversions. And that is a blog post, it's a podcast, it's a training video, it's a Facebook live stream, it's a YouTube series, it's an email marketing course. All this type of content can be cut up, sliced and diced and delivered in whatever format you like. And it's just one little sliver of an idea out of the overall blueprint. Because now we have that blueprint, that's our reference point. That's the story that we tell. That's the content that we produce. That's what we share with our JV partners. That's what we promote on Facebook ads. That's what we promote on social. That's what I talk about when I go to WordCamps. It's a very simple story to tell. The biggest trick for us is not getting distracted and not trying to, recreate new things all the time. That's actually the hardest problem when you've got a unique process, is actually just sticking to the story and just repeating yourself over and over and over again until people all over the world can reference you. And this happens now. We've both seen this happen in Facebook groups and Slack channels where someone says, oh, I've got this problem with a client about pricing and they're asking for a discount. What should I do? And everyone just comes in and says, you should join WP Elevation and you learn how to handle this stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, we're now known as that because that's the consistent story we've been telling for 5 years. And that's because we have a unique process that we take our clients through, and that's something that is our differentiator. And so I think that really is the number one thing you can do to help generate new clients, is to develop that unique process and then use that to tell your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I got another question here. So, I mean, this is actually a really good idea here as well. They said, what are some ideas for reaching out to an industry that I know needs professional websites? I've worked in it, have firsthand experience with their inferior websites, talk to decision makers, blah, blah, blah. And they continue to hire third-party proprietary providers for a small fortune so that don't actually deliver. Nice. So I've known a lot of people that work with associations for that kind of thing. So they try and get into that industry through an association. What would you say for that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm all about leverage, right? I don't like doing something once and then doing the same thing again. So if I'm going to have a conversation, and I'm going to pick accountants because I spend a little bit of time in that niche, if I'm going to have a conversation with an accountant about how I think I can help them with their website, and by the way, one of the biggest problems accountants are trying to solve is not getting new clients, it's actually finding and keeping good staff. And a website is critical. This is a little divergence here. Website is critical for that because accountant graduates come out of accounting school and the first thing they do is start Googling and researching the accounting firms that they want to work with. And if you've got a website that's like a dog's breakfast from 1993, they're going to discount you because you don't look like a professional outfit. I know this firsthand because accounting firms have told me that this is one of their biggest problems. So I can help accounting firms find and attract and keep better staff through digital presence and through LinkedIn strategies and through their website. And I'm going to have that conversation with one accountant, or I'm going to stand up in a room and have that conversation with 250 accountants at a conference. Well, I know what I'd rather choose. Yeah, public speaking frightens the hell out of most people, but there are very simple strategies and tactics and practice that you can do to get over that fear. But if I'm going to have that conversation, I want to have it in front of the 250 people because that'll generate multiple leads rather than doing it one at a time. So in that example, I was put in touch with the CPA of Australia in their events their events department. Every industry association has usually got an events department or a professional development department. So industry associations are generally membership driven. The members in the industry pay a membership fee to belong to that industry association. So my wife is a psychologist. She pays money every year to belong to APRA, and there's another one, the APS, Australian Psychology Society. She pays hundreds of dollars to belong to them every year. They have an obligation to deliver value to their members, and part of the way they do that is they run events and they bring speakers in to teach. And the attendees, if she goes to one of those conferences, she gets PD points, and she has to score a certain amount of professional development points every year to keep her license, right? So this is a no-brainer. They've got a captive audience. They need to bring in speakers. They're looking for good content, and you come along and say, well, I know how to help accountants. I've got this method that we've developed that helps accountants, attract better staff and keep better staff. I'd love to give a free presentation. Oh, happy days. No worries. Thank you very much. And you pick up leads. Now, sometimes you get paid for those gigs. Sometimes you do it for free and you pick up leads. But it's very easy to have that conversation rather than just saying, oh, I'm a web developer, I build websites, can I get up and talk about what I know? Well, not really. I mean, that's not that helpful.
It's such a perfect example of this whole specialization and like, niching down, because, you wouldn't know that accounting students Google the places and end up on websites to choose where to work at. Like, you don't know that unless you work with accountants.
Correct. And it just comes from listening, man. It just comes from I learned pretty early on that building, so I don't know what it is about my personality, but I can't launch a website for a client and then just watch it kind of fall off the back of the boat into the water and sink, right? I want it to be hugely successful. Partially, I think, because I have a fragile ego, James, and I want people to congratulate me and thank me and admire me for my genius, right? So I always want, every project I touch, I always want it to be a success, because then people are like, oh, you're so clever. And I'm like, yes, I know. Thank you. So why, so I was like, okay, how do I launch successful websites? And it's not about building the website. It's about how the website fits into the overall business strategy. And it's about whether or not that business has the potential to be a successful business, and then how the website can help them move a few levers to get them where they want to go. So when you start to think that way and you start to have conversations with accountants about, well, what does this website project look like if it's a raving success? And they start telling you, and I went in speaking with accountants about, well, it must be about getting more clients. And they're like, no, not really. We got so many lowball clients who are not profitable and we're just doing their tax compliance work. We want much higher clients that we do strategy consulting with, and we need more staff to, capacity to fulfill the work that we've got. So it's only through listening to your client, really listening to your client, that you actually understand what role you're playing in their ecosystem. And I'm telling you, man, it's not code. They're not paying you for code. They're paying you for your ideas, your experience, your advice, your guidance. That's what they're paying you for.
It's kind of that 5 whys thing, what you were talking about there, where to get to the real core, what they want is ask the question. If you say, what do you want? It's more clients. Why is that? And then you say, why is that 5 times to get to what they're really, really looking for. So
we have a slightly different angle on that, which we call go wide, go deep. And what it basically is you ask why 5 times, or as many times until it's awkward. So, hey, James, why do you think you need a new website? Oh, because ours looks dated. Okay, that's a good reason. But before I ask why, the next question I'll ask is, why else do you need a website? Oh, because, this is a real example. Accountants are like, oh, when we go to network functions and we hand out our business card, we're embarrassed because people are going to look at our website and it kind of looks like crap. Okay, cool. That's fair enough. Why else do you need a website? So you ask why else, and you kind of stretch out the answers. You go wide on the answers. And then once it gets awkward, or they're looking at you kind of going, no, that's it, man, I'm done. That's all the reasons I can think of. You go, all right, cool. So out of all of those things that you just told me, which is the most important reason that you need a website? And then they'll start to say, oh, well, it just looks a bit dated and we're a bit embarrassed by it. Okay, cool. So why is that the most important? And things get awkward now because they're like, dude, you ask a lot of questions. And
shut up.
Yeah. They're like, what, And my answer always is like, I'm sorry for all the questions, but think of me as a doctor. I can't give you the right medicine until you tell me all the symptoms. So just bear with me here. I play along. And then so then they say, all right, well, that's the most important because of this reason. You say, okay, why else? And so now we're going deep on that answer, right? It's embarrassing to look at and we cringe. Okay, now we're going to go deep on that, and then we're going to go wide. And we just keep going wide, deep, until you get to the truth. And what happened is early on in my career, I was dealing with an osteopath who needed a new website for his osteopath clinic. And I was doing this go wide, go deep thing. And he was a great active participant. He was like, yeah, I love this stuff, man. Let's really pull it apart and explore it. And eventually he said, well, the truth is I need a great search strategy and I need to be all over search results so that when you Google all these keywords, I want to come up all over Google because I'm selling the clinic. It's like, oh, right.
There
okay.
it is.
So here's the thing, right? You're selling the clinic. The potential buyer of your business is going to be Googling osteopath Melbourne, osteopath Hawthorne, osteopath Richmond, and you want to be everywhere so that they see that you've got this great search strategy which adds value to the sale of your business. Sweet. Now it's a search engine visibility job. It doesn't really kind of matter whether it's the sexiest design in the world. What is more important is that your search engine visibility is A+. Got it. Now I know what I'm working with because I was prepared to ask lots of questions, sit through the awkward silences, and actually get to the truth.
It's actually a really similar story to one I heard from Adam Hempy from Better Proposals, and we had a chat over in Brighton, and except they wanted to, rather than a search visibility, they just wanted the website to look schmick so they could show that to the prospective buyer and look at us, we're so good. So yeah. And same sort of thing. He had to go wide and deep to dig that out of them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And most people aren't prepared to do that because it can get awkward. It can get uncomfortable when you ask lots of questions. But the more you're prepared to just sit in those uncomfortable silences, the more money you get paid. I categorically, that is the number one way to sort of start getting paid as a consultant and not a developer is to start really understanding what's going on in the business.
Nice. Just, I think there's only really a couple we haven't.
I'm not sure if I answered the question.
No, I think we got there.
The question?
I think we've gone way on from the last question anyway.
Oh yeah,
no,
it's about industry associations.
Yeah, that's what it started with, but it doesn't matter. There's heaps of value in there. So we've got, like, besides referrals, what are your most common consistent marketing channels? I mean, we've kind of covered that. Is there anything, I guess that it's in the specialization, but let's say you're a newbie and you don't even know where to start and you just want to know where to get your first client. Or something consistent where you can at least get a client,
So here's a couple of things. I mean, the quickest way to get people who are interested in you is to run very, very, very targeted ads either on LinkedIn or Facebook or maybe Twitter, depending on your audience, right? Now, the big problem that most people make when they start running Facebook ads, and I'll use Facebook as the example, probably because, at the moment, it's probably the glory days of the gold rush days of Facebook ads, and probably in 3 years' time we'll be having a different conversation because the demand will be so high that they'll just be too expensive. But at the moment, Facebook ads are still a really good way to build an audience. And the problem that most people make is they go, all right, well, I'm going to just drive people to my homepage or drive people to my portfolio or drive people to a sign up page where they can sign up for a free strategy session, and that's going to get really expensive and it's not going to work. So the idea is to drive people to content. Don't ask for anything. Just drive people to content that is super helpful content that is part of your unique process. So an epic blog post, a great how-to video, a free template you can give them. If you're working with accountants, for example, you might want to research your face off until put together the checklist for hiring new accounting graduates to make sure you don't hire someone and then lose them in 6 months' time. I mean, you can spend an hour and a half on Google researching this stuff and you can kind of become an expert very quickly on these topics, right? So then publish something that's really helpful. Don't ask for anything. Don't ask for any email address or anything like that. Just publish something that's really helpful. Drive Facebook ads to that piece of content. Start building an audience for people who visited that piece of content, and then start remarketing them back to a page which offers them the checklist or to get on a call or to get on a strategy session or whatever your conversion event is, right? So that's just one little distinction about what to do with PPC. The other thing and what really started my business when I started out, I did not have any clients. I had no portfolio. I thought I knew what I was doing and I had to convince some people. And I also had cabin fever because I'd been living in my bedroom for a long time learning how to code. And I was like, I need to get out of the house and go and have a beer on a Friday afternoon at the pub. So I started this thing on the third Friday of every month. I started this thing called Freelancer Friday because I liked the alliteration and I thought it was fun to say. And so I built a website in WordPress. It was one of the first websites I ever built. And if you go to the Wayback Machine, it'll be pretty fun. You can see it's freelancerfriday.org, I think, or .com.au. I can't remember. Anyway. And I basically said to all my freelancer friends, hey, I'm going to the pub on the third Friday of every month at 4:00, down tools, and I'm just going to have some beers and hang out and shoot the shit because we all work from home and we don't really have office mates to kind of bounce off. So I started this networking thing, and my goal was to introduce people that I knew that didn't know each other. So if we were doing it, and we had like an online version of this, I would invite you and I would invite someone who I knew you didn't know that I thought you should know. And I'm going to pretend that you don't know Adam from WP Crafter. There you go. I'm going to pretend that you don't know Adam Prezier from WP Crafter. And I would say, hey, James, you should meet Adam. Adam, you should meet James. You guys are awesome guys. I love both what you're doing and I think you'll get along. And then you guys just start chatting, right? And so I would do this. I would have like 20 or 30 people turn up every month at these events and I would just be the connector. I would just introduce people to each other. And eventually, and I had no expectation. I wasn't pitching my shit. I wasn't trying to sell websites. I wasn't doing anything like that. I was just literally getting out of the house to have a beer. And eventually people would be like, why are you doing this? Like, what do you do? And I'd be like, oh, I build websites. I picked up so much work from that, not generally from people at the event, but from people at the event who knew other people who needed websites. I found my first business partner through that event. He was a regular. He came along and we eventually partnered up. It was the absolute number one thing I did to build my local network and picked up enough work to keep me going for the first couple of years until I got some traction and was then just getting referrals and word of mouth. So that's what I would be doing. Get out of the house and connect people who you think should know each other and they will be forever grateful.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think there's actually a few similarities there on how we got started, and it was basically just going to those kind of events. We didn't start our own. I think that's next level. And I think that's a really, really good idea if someone's connected enough to start that up, or, even if you're not, start getting a network together. But going to those business events and actually going to the same ones enough with the same people, I ended up getting known as, the guy that did websites. And same thing, they referred other people in to get web work done, or apps or software, whatever it was. So yeah, I think I've always been a big fan of networking as when you're first getting started. So it's really good to hear your story is kind of similar. Because I always talk about it and I'm not sure, I'm like, does it work for everybody? I don't know.
It's the long game. Like it's not going to, you're not going to win a website next week by going and having lunch with two people and connecting them. It's the long game, but it's a great long game. And in the virtual world, one of the best things I did when we started WP Elevation was I started a podcast, because a podcast is a excellent tool to use to reach out, to connect with people. So, I would reach out to people in the WordPress space who I didn't know, who I wanted to get to know, and I would introduce myself and say, hey, I've got this podcast. We've got these listeners. They'd love to hear from you. So that was like a warm call, not a cold call. And then it's a great way to ask people at the end of the show, hey, James, who would you like to see on the podcast? And you go, you know what? I'm going to introduce you to Adam Hempy from Better Proposals, and he'd be great. And I'm like, sweet. So you're just introducing me to people, and it expands your network exponentially. And it was the best thing we did to grow WP Elevation.
That's awesome. That's really good advice. Thank you.
No worries. Pleasure.
I think that pretty much covers all the marketing questions I've got. I've got one, is how to get your first clients without a reputation or portfolio. But I mean, I didn't have a portfolio and we got our first jobs. Did you?
No, I mean, of course not. I mean, you're not born with a portfolio, are you? So
yeah.
it's like
some people go out and do pro bono work. Are you an advocate for that?
I think I built a couple of, before I even was kind of in business as a web designer, I built a couple of websites for mates for free, just for fun. They were in the film industry. That was like back when I was experimenting with Flash, in my experimental era.
Glad you didn't go down that road anymore.
Yeah. And so then eventually they were like, all right, we need you to build us a proper website and we'll pay you for it. I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough. I better learn how to do this. So, and I built some websites for I was a voiceover artist and a muso. And so I built websites for my own projects, and that's your portfolio, right? Like if you've got a hobby, like if you like collect model trains or something weird, or like maybe you're into like remote control boats, on the weekend or something weird, then you should like build a website for your hobby and then put that up in your portfolio and say, here's one I did, here's one I prepared earlier. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just so that you can show people, prove to people that you can actually do what it is you're telling them you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Okay, well, I think that's pretty valuable, and there's a lot of, I guess, takeaways there. I think the biggest one's networking to start with, specialization, and in what you do and who you do it for. Actually, one thing I was going to say around that too is that packaging mentality is basically the Built to Sell book. So I was going to recommend people go and read that if they haven't already.
John Warrilow, Built to Sell, is a fantastic book. It's just absolutely, because the truth is, if you're doing services for clients, it's not scalable. But forget about it not being scalable. It's worse than not scalable, right? If you're just building bespoke custom websites for every client that walks in the door, it's worse than not scalable. It's a trap. You'll actually handcuff yourself to your business. Oh, yeah. I've got a buddy of mine who's a headshot photographer, and he's really good. He shoots a lot of headshots for a lot of famous actors in Australia, and he went on a holiday to the States last year with his fiance, and he came back and he's like, I'm 25 grand in the hole. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, I spent 15 grand on the holiday, and I didn't earn 10 grand while I was away on holiday because I wasn't on the camera. He's like, I have no revenue in the business unless I'm actually on the camera. I'm like, dude, we've been talking about this. You've got to solve this problem. You've got to start packaging it up, what you do, and repositioning it and selling it to corporate clients or selling it to actors, make it more valuable and put them on packages, put them on yearly or quarterly packages so that you've got some predictable revenue coming in. You can't scale a custom service business. And as I said, worse than that, it actually is a handcuff to your business. And one of the things we talk about in our program all the time is how to productize what it is you're doing and how to add more value to your customers and get them on some kind of recurring revenue model, because that's the only way to free yourself from that, time for money treadmill.
I'm almost going to have to get you back to talk about recurring revenue, I think.
Oh, mate.
Because that one person did ask about that. But that's
one of my favorite topics of all time. Mate, I'd come back anytime and talk about recurring revenue.
All right.
In fact, we're going to San Diego at the end of June, and we're running a full-day recurring revenue masterclass. So it is totally,
I saw that.
Totally one of my favorite topics, man. It's changed my life, recurring revenue. I wouldn't be here right now talking to you if it wasn't for recurring revenue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know a lot of sort of clever people switching to that kind of model, like James Shremko, like he's all about it as well. Always gone to his membership, got rid of all of his one-time products and rolled it all into a membership. And everyone's doing it for good reason.
Yeah. Yep, totally.
Sweet, man. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
And if you guys watching, obviously go check out WP Elevation. I'll drop a link. It's going to be right there, overlaid on the video.
Awesome.
And I'll drop a link below the video as well. So awesome.
Thanks for having me, James, and keep up the good work with Content Snare, man.
Thanks, man. So hopefully you got a few gold nuggets out of that. Obviously, Troy's a bloody awesome guy for sharing that information with me and you. That link again, contentsnare.link/WPE to jump on the next intake of WP Elevation. You probably get, depending on when you visit that link, you might get some free videos. They run through like proposal breakdowns and provide a lot of awesome free info on how to land bigger projects and more of them. So yeah, hit that link. It'll be below the video as well. And just sign up when you're ready.